Now let's create our handle. So let's start by creating a simple box. So what we can do is, let's start by, what we really want to do is only model the half of it, so since you're gonna mirror it anyway. So what I'm gonna do is just place it around something like maybe this, and then yeah, something like this. Let's just extend it a little bit further. Now let's add an edge loop to somewhere maybe here, and let's just move it upwards because it goes a little bit of upwards like that. Now let's go to the front viewport. You can see it's very smooth like that. So let's go back to our box. Let's actually just do something like this. Let's just center it around like that. It would be better if our image was actually in center, but for us right now it doesn't really matter all that much. So let's just take these. Let's start beveling them. Let's take a look at the actual bevel amount. So maybe something like this. Yeah. So you can see it doesn't really match together, but it's okay. All we really need to do is just to get the basic shape of it. So now let's just start beveling these. But for that, let's fuse all of these together, and now let's bevel them like that. Do something like this. So this is going to be our handle like that. And now all we really have to do is make sure we are cutting out this part of it. So let's create a box and let's start moving it to somewhere where we can start cutting it. So maybe somewhere in here. Let's add an edge loop. Let's move it inside, maybe here, like that. And for us to actually leave it also bottom of it, let's just go to the box and let's bevel it. Just one. Let's go back to this and let's just bevel it up until here, and that's it. Now all we need to do is boolean it. So let's put down a boolean. So A and B geometry, and we want to subtract. Let's turn off any other views. So something like this. Let's take a look at it. Now that we have our basic shape, first of all, let's start by deleting some of these faces. So let's go in here and select by normal. Let's delete bottom and these faces. So once we have deleted them, let's actually extrude it. Extrude it a little bit. Let's output also back, something like this. So now what we can do is we actually have to bridge them together. So from reference you will notice that this actually bridges somewhere around here. It's actually inside, so this inside is empty, but inside there it's actually bridges together. So let's just take the knife tool. Let's just cut it somewhere in here like that. So now that we have cut it together, let's turn off select by normal. All we really have to do is let's select these faces, and let's select these two, and let's put down a bridge tool, and that's it. Let's bridge it by one, and now we have our bridge together. See, inside it's empty like that, and now all we really have to do is symmetrize it. So let's put down a let's also, since there needs to be a place for the handle, so from reference images we also need to do something like this. So basically this is where the actually handle is going to hook on from the reference images you will see. So this is it. So now what we can do is just symmetrize it. Put down the symmetrize node. Lab symmetrize. So first of all, let's symmetrize it to the negative z for me, and let's actually delete this centroid. Let's move it manually. So let's just move it somewhere here like that, and that's it. Base of our object is already done. So obviously if you want to subdivide it, these are not very good polygons for us, but you will see that, let's say before we symmetrize, actually going to put down labs exocyte quadr measure. You'll see what results we get, and once we symmetrize it, we actually get really nice quad topology. If you want to go road with the actually subdividing this model. But for me, I'm actually not going to subdivide it. I'm gonna leave it like that. But what I'm going to do is actually maybe delete. Actually, let's leave it like that. So basically, this is our handle. So it's a little bit maybe too wide since we extruded it. Just make them something like this, like that. So this is going to be our handle. For the actual handle, let's do this by creating a box. So let's actually make this as a flat handle, and then we can just bend it. Just make sure that we are something like so. Think about it, it goes up until here to something like maybe this. So this looks fine for us. So let's just center it now on a Z. So now first of all, let's go on top. Let's also make it maybe something like this. So first things first, let's make it to the polygon mesh. Let's actually, for the divisions, let's make it to 2, but since you want to bend it, it's for us important that we can actually have geometry to bend. So maybe something like 10 iterations. Now let's just take these, let's bevel them. Something like this. I see that's kind of like extrusion on both sides, so what I'm going to do is actually just take this and duplicate it, and then just merge them together. And now take box, let's just move it outwards, let's just squish it together, like that. You're basically gonna create this kind of extrusion. That's the wrong one. So maybe something like this. So this is going to be our extruded geometry. And now let's put down a boolean. Let's actually merge them together. So just connect both of these and put down to the union, so that we are actually deleting anything inwards. Now let's do some more editing. So first of all, let's create this kind of a detail before we actually merge them together. So let's go to the bevel. Let's put down a box. And this box is basically what I want to do is just move it to something like this. Take this edge, let's move it in here and just bevel all of these. And that's it. So now we have our box. And now what we can do is just boolean it. So just like this. Actually in polygon you can boolean and just select this one. And that's it. You see it's automatically going to create our boolean operation. So now we merge them together like that. And now that we have merged them together, let's actually make it maybe a little bit bigger. Actually do it on both sides like that. So now let's actually create the bottom. There's kind of a booleans below it. So let's just put down another box and then just connect it to the boolean. So once we have created our uniform shape that's combined, just another boolean from subtract. Let's move it to something like this. Yeah, there's a little bit of a something like this maybe. So that's that, and there's also an end at the ends with also this kind of a shape. So we can actually mirror it. So what you can do is actually just select this, just duplicate it, and just move it outwards like that. And that's it. And now what we're going to do is going to mirror it. So go to the boolean and put down a lap symmetry node. I want to on negative z axis like that. Actually going to z negative like that. And now let's just create these kind of details. Let's put down a tube. Let's make it to the x-axis. Let's scale it inwards. Make sure that it's something like this. So we have 1, 2, 3, just 4 holes. Something like this maybe. Let's make it more resolution. And let's just duplicate it. like that. Now let's boolean it. Let's take a look at the result. So you see our normals are not that good, so let's just do this like that. Let's put our normals for both of these shapes, so the normals are not all screwed up like that. And now let's start merging these together. So first of all, let's put down the match size for our first part. So what I'm doing is make sure that it's in the center, because this part is also in the center. So that we're going to merge them together, they're not totally out of alignment. So after the match size, let's put also normal for our first part, like that. And now let's just start working on movement of this geometry. So let's move it somewhere in here. Now only thing that we have to do is now we have to bend it. Now let's just add some edge loops at the ends of this geometry, because we have to also need to, because basically we need to bend it also this one. So let's take a look at actually this is going to work for us. So this looks fine actually. So let's go right after the boolean before we symmetrize our geometry. Let's just go here and add some edge loops like that. Now let's actually part deform it. So first of all, let's create a curve. So in curve, let's make sure that it's a NURB curve. Restart selection, and let's just view over this one, and then just start drawing this curve. So what I'm going to do is, so to here, and then just start driving it upwards, something like this, and then 1, 2 to the end, like that. Just move it like that. Now let's put down a pad deform. So the first one is going to be geometry to deform and our curve. Let's take a look at the result. You can see we are already moving it. But one thing to note that we probably want to stretch it. What's cool about this, we can just go inside this path deform node and grab this green green arrow and just drag it more like that, and that's it. Now let's connect it to the merge. Let's take a look. So this is going to be our handle. And what's great about this, we can always go back. I would say you want maybe it a little bit more connected to the ground like that. You can always do that. See that in here it's kind of a clipping, so go back to the curve and actually let's move it. Let's actually go to the pad deform and move it like that. You can also move it the back of it. So like this, and then just like that. So now this is our handle. This is very quick and dirty way to create this handle. Of course, if you want to subdivide it, you will probably want to do a little bit differently, but one thing that I can suggest for the quick subdivision geometry, what you can use actually is, if you have an exercise quadrant measure, it's a very good measure. Let's put it maybe something like 2000. It gives pretty good results with the quadrant measure. And now let's subdivide. Maybe subdivide like 2 times. Let's override decreases like that. Let's put in the normal. Just smooth it out all of it. Let's connect it to the pad deform like that. You can see we are already getting a lot smoother. If you are looking for more smoother results, something like this. But if you don't have it, and if you're not really, don't need all that detail, for us this is going to work just fine. And now let's finish up with the back plug. So first of all, let's do this inside our back bottom and back and bottom, because we're still going to have to boolean also. So let's do this by, let's put down a box. Actually, let's put down a grid to make sure it's on y and X and Y axis. Now let's just scale it in a bit. So what you do is just around the same scale, something maybe like this. Now let's add the edge loop and then just scale them outwards like that. Actually, let's also scale it like that. The scale is something like this. And what's cool about this, you can actually use the divide and multiply keys to make the pivot bigger or smaller. So whenever I usually get into like when these handles are right above where they are hard to get, you can just press on divide or multiply to get the pivot out of the way. So something like this. Now let's bevel them 3 times maybe. Something like this. It's actually maybe a little too. Let's do it like that. You see, the bevel is going to create all of these points. So what you can do is actually put down a dissolve flat edges node like that. And remember that you can assign any hotkey to any of these nodes. Only thing that you have to do is actually go to the toolbar. For me it's in model, I just added it to the actual toolbar. So you can see you can actually go to the edit shell tab. You can see these are all the tools, even your HDAs are inside here. So you can just add it and then just add a hotkey for it. So you have to manually search it if there are many that you are using commonly. Very often, just assign a hotkey for it. So for the second one, let's just duplicate this grid and let's start working on this one. So this is going to be a little bit smaller and a little bit inwards like that. Now just basically do the same thing, bevel it like that. Now let's just take these and merge them together. So there's a couple of things you can do. First of all, let's give some thickness to our second grid. Something like this. Let's also output back. I guess we don't even have to output back like that. And let's also output the dissolved flat edges like that. Obviously you have to. So just to give it a little bit of a dimensions like that. Now since you're gonna have to boolean some of these out, some shapes, so let's actually transform the back for our main piece like that. And instead of merging, let's put down a boolean. I'll actually use boolean union like that. So one thing you will notice that since the back is exactly the same extrusion, you can see we are getting this kind of a edges on. So what you can do is just put down another flat edge dissolve like that. So now we have one union piece. So for our plug we can probably take the back of it and let's move it inwards since we want some depth to it because you're gonna create actually the plug goes inside. So let's just move the back of it a little bit outwards like that. Now let's start with a simple box. Let's start by aligning these like that. And then just take the bottom of it and just bevel them one time like that. Then we can take them again and bevel them maybe divisions at maybe 3 like that. And let's actually start boolean and see the end result. So it's more of a visual way that we can see what's going on here. So probably want to move this a little bit like that. Actually, let's move it a little bit outwards even more. So okay, so this is basically done. Now for the screws. So you can see it's kind of like a tapering effect for it. So let's just go inside here and let's create a tube. Now I just move it around the center of it scale them inwards like that. Maybe a little bit more of a. And what I actually going to do is take these, start inwards, and take the back of it, and just taper them inwards like that. This is basically going to give us this tapering effect. So let's just select these, let's merge them. Let's select only these two, let's merge them. Okay, let's try this again, like that, and then just connect them to the boolean. Let's play around with this. So something like this maybe. Maybe even more of a taper. This looks good. And now let's create this kind of. What's great about this, you can just make it in one side, and since we're gonna mirror it anyway, so don't worry about that. So let's make this one just a place for the switch. So let's do it inside also in here. Let's just move it like that. So just something like this, and then put it inside the merge. Let's take a look at the result. So it doesn't have to be that inwards, just a little bit. And let's just bevel it a bit. Maybe something like this. Actually, let's actually also scale it up a bit, so we have a place for our switch. Something like this. So that's it. Now let's take a look. And now let's just symmetrize it. And we want to symmetrize on a positive x-axis. Like that. And that's it. Now let's create these three outlets. Actually, let's do it by before the symmetrize after the boolean. And actually let's put on a box. What I want to do is basically just create two of them. And then since we're basically symmetrizing it, it's going to work out very nicely. Let's make it something maybe like this. Okay, let's add one edge loop and just move it like that. And since it's not a huge detail, let's just move it like that. Now let's duplicate it. Let's move it here. Actually, let's rotate it like that. And now let's just merge it with the actual boolean and this copy like that, and then put it in normal. See, we basically now have this. Probably want to move it a bit inwards too. Something like this. Obviously, we can also, once you have symmetried, maybe move these like that. And for the switch, what we actually did is basically just imported our knob from the all buttons. Then just delete this one, then just move it around to fit inside here. So what I did is didn't want to make this whole, see how I'm trying to fit it inside it. So just do that, just merge it with the buttons and fit it inside here. The only thing that we have to do is get these screws. So let's actually import our screws and just copy them manually. So we know that our screws are in, let's put down an object merge. So we know that our screws are in, actually in screws, and we call them screws flat and screws regular. Let's import our screws regular. So there's our screw. And let's just now, let's go to the view at this. Let's take this. What we can do, just select all of it. We can actually start, make sure that we have a pivot, and we can just move it to the position like that. And what's cool about this, let's rotate this correctly and just then press on this one while control is so basically go into object orientation mode and hold down control and click on it. You can see it's going to basically arrange our button inside here automatically, and that's it. And now let's merge it together. If you don't want to do it manually again, what you can do is actually move this all of this network before you actually symmetrize. So after this one, let's merge these together and then put down a symmetrize, delete this edit because now it's going to be different. The only thing we have to do is actually move this screw because we are actually mirroring from the negative X to positive. So let's go back to the object merge and edit, and we can just then move it inside here. And now after symmetrize, you can see our screws are on both sides like that. And for this we can just take these, let's just scale them inwards again like that. Once you have put it in place, one thing to note that we still need to cut out a hole for it. Since I didn't pre-plan for it, all I'm going to do is just go inside here and let's put down the box. Let's just put it somewhere in here. Let's scale it inwards like that. And now all I want to do is just boolean it out. So just what's cool about the boolean tool, you can actually boolean only the parts of this merged mesh. So let's say we have this mesh and we want to boolean also only the back plate. So what you can do is actually select all of these and then just select boolean and press enter. So basically now it's basically in a group says only these polygons to boolean. And now just connect our box to the boolean and let's just move our box in the right position like that. So you can see, let's move it something like that. Now we have a place for our plug. Then we put down normal to smooth out any edges. I add material only for the back of it, and then an output flag like that, and that's it. My bad, like that. One thing to make, let's notice that there's nothing inside it. We can actually model the actual fan, and luckily I have actually a whole video series about creating procedural PC fans, so you can use that tutorial just to add some tutorial or some fan, or we can just put down a box inside it so that it basically doesn't show. And now that it's pretty much done with the modeling, let's merge all of these parts together so we can work on it. So you can work on it. So what you can do is actually create all of the important parts that we created, basically are the useful parts for us, in one subnetwork. Let's call it complete, and inside this let's create a new geo. Let's call it entire geo, and in here let's put down a object merge node, and object merge let's put down data slash and asterisk. So basically this says give me everything that's outside this entire network, so all of these. But one thing that we have a problem is that first of all it also takes this entire geo. So with the caret let's actually exclude our node entire geo. So you can see now the error is gone, and now we can put down something like divide, and also one thing note that go in transform into the object like that, so that it's actually the same object. And now you can see we can put down a divide, basically work on all of these parts. We can work on all of these parts together, and that's it for this video. Thank you for watching and take care, and see you next time.